good day, or evening, or night, or whatever it is where you are. I'm going to share a journal with you that doesn't yet have a title. I suppose it'll garner one, so when you're watching this, it'll have one. But right now it doesn't. For those of you enjoying Abraham Hicks, I've got a rare treat for you. It's a mislabeled video that's over 9 hours long. It says Jerry Hicks interview, expert interviews, history of Abraham Hicks. It's just a bunch of clips. And so I trust there will be many out there who will enjoy it. And there's something from Bashar also. On this feeling good thing, before I get into what I've got written here, I hope that some others are discovering that it's truly our job just to feel good. And you can't hear it with the mind. The mind will slice and dice it and make a mess, chasing its tail. You have to be deeper. You have to be listening from your multidimensional self. Because anything that's truth, or that points to truth, it will echo, it will resonate on deeper levels. And you just get the sense of it. And I know a lot of you listen here from heart, and so you know what I'm talking about. It's really bizarre, according to mind and its perspective, to say that it's not your purpose, it's not your goal, it's just being happy, peaceful, content, pleased, feeling good. That's better. Feeling good is great. And it's possible regardless of outer appearances and all circumstances. Taking different perspectives on things is really a great exercise. Exercise your perspective muscles. Seeing things from many different angles is available to us all. And rather than decide that we really know something and that what we know is right, and therefore what other people know, if it disagrees with what we know, they must be wrong. That's where we lived for a long while, huh? And it was interesting. I wouldn't exchange any of it. I wouldn't trade any of it. How can you? I mean, everything you went through is what made you who and what you are now here. And there's no judge up in the sky ticking things off on some kind of little list either. It's judgment-free. Life is so not what we were taught that it is. It's not even remotely like what we were taught to believe. And I think the entry fee for that is we have to detach ourselves from all our past beliefs. It doesn't matter. None of it matters. Reminds me of Nancy Dennison when she had her phenomenal NDE there in the radiologist's office. And she instantly knew so many things. And anything while she was out of body and on the quote unquote other side, it's here. We just, the eyes don't pick it up, but it's here. It's not somewhere else. On the other side, she was so excited about everything she was learning. I guess maybe this is going to be a live video. Heck, I don't know from nothing. And that's fine. It's a fun way to live. Anyhow, as she was coming back into her body, choosing to live again instead of to stay on the other side, her friends were with her. And they kept telling her, love is all that matters. Love is all that matters. Love. And she kept waving them aside because she was working very hard to anchor in what she had been shown so that she would remember it on getting back here. I think a lot of people have NDEs that they just don't even remember, near-death experiences. And it may be that the conscious mind isn't ready to grapple with that yet, and so it's a mercy and it's a kindness not to remember. But she wanted to brush him aside. And yet, love is all that, it's not only all that matters, it's all that is. And just like there's no dark switch on the wall, there's only a light switch. And so dark isn't the opposite of light, it's merely the absence of it. And so we have love and then the resistance against it, pinching it off, as Abraham says, not allowing it to flow. And so we play all kinds of games while in that state that we don't take to be games. We take them dead seriously to be life. Only it turns out that it's not serious at all. And we take ourselves and everything else way too seriously. And lighten up is a really good thing to remind the self when you're stressed or distressed or whatever. Just lighten up, relax. Go take a walk. Listen to the birds sing. Play a beautiful piece of music. I love listening to vocal harmonies. Or just sit and daydream about beautiful things. Your job is just to feel good. To bring yourself, what it amounts to, I guess, kind of sort of maybe, is bringing yourself into alignment with source or with higher self or with a light. I mean, however we want to conceptualize that. Concepts are more and more on their way out. They're the mind's way of trying to understand things. And it gets more visceral somehow. Your knowings don't come to you at the end of a chain of thoughts. Although they can, I'm not saying that can't happen, but your knowings are more organic. But we've got to lighten up first. That's why believing is seeing. It's not seeing is believing. Science kind of doesn't quite get it as far as the power of belief. And consciousness, they don't want to deal with consciousness. But that's okay, that's their deal. What's your deal? What's my deal? What brings us joy? What makes us happy? For me, a lot of it is I take little doses of the world in certain videos. And if I find myself not feeling great, I intersperse Abraham clips. I subscribed to somebody, I don't even know if it's a guy or a gal, who puts short clips out daily, sometimes 2 or 3, but always at least one. And it's yummy. You know, it's a pick-me-up. It's better than a coffee break. Well, better than. You know, I don't think comparison is any good anymore either, because it just hit me, to do comparison, you're looking at time. And you've brought the past in, because what is comparison but a comparing of now to the past, or even to some future that you'd like to inhabit. And so to do any kind of comparison is to step out of your now, which is the true point of power, where all of this abides somehow in some magic, miraculous way. Later on, as perspective expands, or as we cross over, when we see all this in hindsight, we'll see that we contain it, and we'll have better understandings. But if we were meant to have them, we'd have them now. If we needed them, we'd have them now. When we need them, they appear. There's a certain, you can't have fear here, and so there's a certain trust that, of course, mind isn't used to. But that's okay. I don't know how I could make it through school like this if I had it to do over, you know? The now is just so perfect. And the neat trick is that it's always been, we just didn't fully see it. And we don't fully see it now. But we have enough of a clearer view. I don't know, clarity is increasing. I'm really glad that there's infinity and eternity. It's never ending. Never ending. You never get it done. And a big part of the fun too is to know that the point is the journey. Well, when they say the point is the journey, they're really pointing to the now here. It's right where you are. It's tucked and hidden away in amongst the little things, which are not little. They're the conversation of the divine with us. And it's all love, but we've got to be it before we can see it. Oh, it's so wonderful. I don't know. I guess I'll go ahead and share this with you. This is a journal from 1014. I don't know what the Mayan day was. I haven't looked it up yet. So here we go. I have no idea yet what this one is about. Sometimes all you get is just the barest impulse to open a journal, and that's all. Not even a feeling goes with it. Well, I'm different again, but then so are you, right? Are you not changing as well? I mean, you are. Are you aware of it? And is your change not accelerating or at least going at a pretty fast clip? Keep in mind, or awareness, that we all live in different realities. None is the same. We've schooled ourselves in interpretation of energy so that we recognize many things with great similarity, like the lines down the middle of the highway and such things. So yet each one's reality is unique. It is funny how we don't realize this early on. Well, I don't know. Maybe some of our younger generations retain this sense of the individuated perspective. The sense of self would be key to it. As babies, we all come in with much more and deeper awareness than most adults even have a clue about, or there wouldn't be so much of that cooing and clucking going on. Which is fine, that's fun too. The baby gets a kick out of it. And due to adults imposing their sense of reality on the children, well, the babies, they soon lose most of their sense that they came in with, the sense of it. And yet, that can be regained, is now being regained by many in this new and expansive time that's upon us. Most of us are expanding out in our own unique ways. A sense of unity is upon many of us. This too is an earmark of the new dawning age, stepping back into the sense of our oneness, again in our own unique ways. Sometimes it seems it would be nice to come here to you with something to say, an idea of what to write. There's just no way that I know of to transfer to you the strangeness of this kind of writing, of journaling. My hope is that many of you do it in your own unique way. All I can say is there's something pretty darn special about it. But words don't teach. Tell that to the teachers. Only experience does that. When we thought we were all engaged in the same exact reality, life looked hugely different than it does to so many of us now. A bit like astronauts looking back on the Earth, having the surprise of their life in how that affected them. It was quite unexpected. I'll give you a link to a short video on that. Even the guys at NASA, they were taping when they first saw the Earth on their monitors there, and you can see the awe and the surprised look in some of their faces. It's what can come with a very simple change of perspective. We don't yet realize en masse the huge difference such a simple thing can make. It can be shattering, amazing, life-changing. It shatters old ideas, our old view of things in an instant. It opens us to a greater, vaster view, and we sense that expansion within. It changes us, guaranteed. It affects our reality. This is what so many speak of who have had any kind of awakening, how everything still looks the same externally, but the way they see it is often vastly different. Well, what changed? Nothing external changed. They did. Their perspective shifted, widened, broadened, took in more of what's available. It was available before, and not even unknown, just unexperienced. I mean, we know that it would look different, to go out in a spaceship and look back at Earth. But the experience isn't anything like what mind thinks it knows about something like that. The change comes in on the seeing something differently. Even momentarily adopting someone else's perspective, their view on something, can bring about such a change, a more modest one perhaps, but then maybe not. There are special things that come on the wings of realizing that we all inhabit our own personal realities, and that the rules for someone else's reality don't even necessarily apply to you. Our realities are distinguished by our different belief systems, each one a whole unique world of specific beliefs, colorings, and shadings of that. Together, those beliefs, just as they're personally structured and constructed, make up what that person experiences as their reality. Yet, most don't know this, or don't know it yet. I feel that we all will at some point, whenever we're ready. We may champ at the bit sometimes, but nature somehow always knows best. Nature gives us what is perfect for our now moment, always. There's that trust I was speaking about. Yet that's another thing most aren't aware of, how very perfect it all is, even and especially in its seeming imperfection. Once we back off from mind's typically linear or dualistic view of things, our perspective shifting really accelerates. We have some wild new experiences in store. Until you change one such belief, you won't realize the deep kind of change it can bring. As a sample, you could choose to believe that we each create or manifest our own particular reality. That's one belief. Another big changer is the belief that everything brings blessing, with no exception. That'll screw your head on in a new way pretty quickly. It'll show up all the negative beliefs. I'm all the time kind of tossing out there these beliefs that I've chosen, yet there are ever so many more available. It's a matter of consciously creating your reality, taking back your power to run your own life. I'm not talking about trying to change outer things or circumstance or other people. I don't recommend that. I'm talking about taking the reins of the one thing over which you have total control. Yourself, your own life, the landscape of your interior being. As long as we are in judgment on any part of life, as long as we're finger pointing at anyone or anything as being responsible for anything appearing in our life, we haven't yet taken all of our power back, all that's available to retake. In the past, I've called this gardening in your interior garden of belief. But I now see that's too tame. It's much more life-changing than is captured in those words. Still, that does convey that the best way to make changes in your life for yourself is to change your beliefs, which starts with getting to know what they are. And that usually takes life to reveal them to us. Our interactions with life, people, circumstances, this reveals our deeper self to us. It brings it up to the surface. We're often surprised by our response or reaction to something. Like the astronauts were totally surprised and caught off guard by what it felt like to look back on the Earth. And we react to something as simple as what someone says or what they believe. The depth of our response may surprise us. That is to remember a belief that was lying dormant, one now activated by what just happened. I don't know anyone who is so self-aware that they know all of their beliefs. So I'd say it's best not to let mine tell you that you do. Ain't happening. Yet, if you think you know them all, that means you're asleep to recognizing them at work in your life. If you don't believe you hold any beliefs that the conscious mind isn't aware of, then you won't see them in action. They fall outside the realm of what you believe, of your reality. And remember, that conscious mind, only 10%. Yet, someone else who is with you may see it ever so clearly. We do some of our best learning about the self while watching other people. It's easier, less threatening to our chosen reality to see things in them. Harder to see the same things in the self. And so we project a lot, making it safer and easier to recognize self in others. All the while, mostly not realizing that's what we're doing. God, this life is so strange. Most of our beliefs were installed by our parents and our teachers. Our peer group and friends may have also played a role as we adopt many of their beliefs. Those laid down in infancy and toddlerhood may be among the strongest and the hardest to recognize, to separate out from sufficiently, to perceive them as separate from self. Some may get a kick out of opening a special use journal, one dedicated only to beliefs, to recording them as we perceive them, jotting them down in a journal. You'd be surprised how much of the deeper you will come out to play when you journal, my friends. And considering that our whole life is literally structured by our beliefs, those serious about wanting change will find fertile ground in the garden of belief. As I've shared many times, one of the quickest ways to discover hidden beliefs is just adopt a new one right away, or within 24, 72 hours, you'll be presented with your hidden beliefs that clash with the new one. They'll just pop into your awareness. And if you're alert, you won't miss it. This is where it can be so helpful to have a now, here focus. To not spend much time in mind wandering around in past and future, which obviously pulls you out of the now moment. I mean, it doesn't have to, but if you're doing it unconsciously, it does. This self-observation thing is really awesome. It helps you develop the breathing space between you and your mind, you and your body. And that particular perspective shift is a real shock, to realize your deeper identity, the one that transcends both body and mind, An OBE will do it, so will an NDE. But you don't need that. You don't need that. This is always available. A big part of our programmed belief system is dedicated to making sure you identified with the body and the mind. The idea that those are perhaps the smallest aspect of you can come as quite a shock the first time it's perceived. And do you see how these changes I've been mentioning are all enacted by what you're perceiving? It's really good to be open to new ideas, new perspectives, and you probably are, or you wouldn't be here. That makes it so much easier to make these shifts in perception, to experience life in entirely new ways. Ways that make us realize, hey, we're changing. As any accident reporting officer knows, people can and do jointly experience the same set of circumstances, yet give very different reports of it. I guess it's the open ones among us who begin to realize and experience how we all live in different realities. Similar, maybe, but different. And this one also comes as quite a shock initially. Most of us would rather look the other way than examine it, than check it out, than give it a chance or a trial run as a new belief. Overcoming all fear is a really great experience that leaves us open and available to a much broader range of experience. Fear of death. If you get past that one, you're well on your way to conquering them all. That's another belief installed with the programming of our youth. It may never have been directly spoken about, but the programming was there. It said death is something you mourn, something to fear. I may have taken up the hobby of NDE studies, at least partly to conquer that fear, well, to transcend it, leave it behind. I studied them deeply over several decades. I don't know when during that time, I finally realized I had not even a drop of the fear of death left. It was just gone, replaced by a spirit of rejoicing for when that time comes to me or to anyone. It's truly a grand release. Well, what'll it take for you to get past all fear of death, if you haven't already? There will be something custom designed to support you in this. You can just set your intent that it will come to you, this fearlessness, and then let the idea go. It'll come soon enough, and you'll know when it does. Once we're free of fear, we're much more able to explore the vast realms of both space and consciousness. We find it easy to take a new belief out for a test drive, knowing that only good can come of it. Well, good, better, or best, for everything brings blessing. Yet I'm sure you can see how greatly it helps to have no fear. And you may choose to adopt that belief or dump it, it doesn't matter. Just have fun on the test drive. You can't be killed, my friends. Bodies die, but not you. Not ever, as in never. You're eternal. No doubt your awareness will do vast amounts of shifting as you continually morph and expand. Yet there will never come a time when you, the real you, will cease to be. It's not possible. You can't be hurt. Not the real you. You are source. How can you hurt source? Gonna smack God in the face? You think that's gonna hurt? I don't think so. You're actually divine. Now there's a new belief for you. Some take much longer to settle in our belief systems, such as big ones like this, against which so much of our childhood programming was installed. Yet, it can still be great fun, for perhaps you already know that there's no destination we're all headed toward. The whole point of life is the journey itself. In the joy of that, the experience it brings, ever expanding us out. There's no reason ever to be in a hurry about things, for to hurry is a misuse of time. It's to race to get to a destination, which invalidates the journey, the now here, making us miss so much that is precious on the roadside along our way. That's what I found coming into only self and now here in heart helps us proceed. Let us take our focus out of trying to change our brother, our sister, our children, our mate, as those are the ones on which most focus their efforts. Rather, let us leave them alone. They are their own being. They have their own life, their own reality to create. Better yet, had we ever thought of learning from them? You have yours, the only one of which you are truly in charge. So many of us are waking up from trying to fix our smile by reaching out and changing the mirror, the image there. We put the acne cream there, thinking that's a sensible thing to do before we awaken to recognize that all that we perceive is our reflection. Others reflect us back to ourselves. And if we want to bring any changes, they must all start within, period. It all goes with coming into a deeper recognition that I am that. Whatever that is, it's an aspect of me, of the greater me, yes. It's time for all who are ready to quit with the solid identification with the body mind. We're so darn much more than that I have no words for it. To continue in that old belief is to choose to severely limit the great self that we are, the divine one. Yet, due to the gift of free will, we all have the right to do just that, to stay limited if that's what we like. Some do. And it's not up to us to force any sort of change on them either. That's not our job. If we think it is, well, we do ourselves a favor to look deeply into that. 3 types of business exist: yours, mine, and God's, says Byron Katie. I agree. And yet, getting people to see that, simple though it is, don't bother. They'll see it when they're darn good and ready. Beyond mentioning that you're really impressed with Byron Katie, or perhaps sharing one of her books, I wouldn't go. They're not your job. You are. So stick to self, only to self. And yes, they are an aspect of that self, but you go within to do this, to the central core, is changing. I promise that if you're faithful to it, this will bless you far more than you can initially believe or conceive. Only self, and yours, mine, and God's business, these are precious, fruitful ways to focus, leaving others alone. We come into a deeper and deeper respect for them as we give them their freedom from us trying to alter them in some way, even to save their soul. That's a whole conceptual thing there. And that would be God's business. And I'm quite confident God has things well in hand. And will see to any such. Okay. Back into heart with you. See, this is another area where life gets so much better as we're awakening. We drop all, literally all, the stress of our life. We quit feeling it's either our fault or our job if the world isn't working quite right, according to our way of seeing. We don't usually realize we need to adjust our way of seeing, do we? We let other people be responsible for them and learn to be curious about their perspectives on things, not with a desire to change them, but out of simple, childlike curiosity to understand. We engage with life in a whole new way, in many new ways. We start falling in love with things. The darndest things will bring tears to your eyes, happy tears. You'll so often be delighted, and you'll never know what the next delight will be either. You won't be off in the future thinking like that. You'll just be fully in your now. There's no more boredom, no more humdrum. These cannot exist in the presence, the deep presence of your now here focus. Every moment is delightfully new. It calls to mind before enlightenment, you chop wood and carry water. After enlightenment, what do? Well, you chop wood and you carry water. And yet, every moment delightfully new. This isn't understandable by mind, I guess you know. Just in case you thought to explore it that way, this is heart stuff, what you find at your core. Mind is a great support staff for you, doing its part along the way, mostly by getting out of the way until we readjust and readapt to letting heart rule. Shifting into neutral for you to have your experience, whatever it is. That's some of the finest stuff that mind can do. Well, I guess that's all, as I don't hear anything more. Interesting ending. Namaste.